Today on Diplomatic Insights,
President Bola Ahmed Tinubu paid a significant state visit to Brazil in pursuance to deepening Nigeria-Brazil bilateral relations. Nigeria participates in the 9th Tokyo International Conference on Africa Development. Philippines strengthens ties with Nigeria in labor and migration. Federal Republic of Nigeria engages in the 17th BRICS Summit in Brazil.
Colombia Vice President Francia Marquez in Nigeria on a 3-day official visit.
Hello and welcome to Diplomatic Insight. I am Oyebola Ajiboye. President Bola Tinubu's state visit to Brazil marked his 3rd visit since the inception of his administration. He was in Brazil during the G20 summit in November 2004, as well as the BRICS summit of July 2025. In a joint statement of the President of the Federative Republic of Brazil and the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva and President Bola Ahmed Tinubu expressed satisfaction that the bilateral relationship officially established in 1961 has always been characterized by friendship and has deepened significantly in recent years. President Tinubu's state visit is acknowledged as a landmark in the process of intensifying bilateral relations over the past 2 years.
To bring our sovereignty to the level of expectation that we as a nation, an African nation, the most populous country, the most dynamic country, Nigeria, to share with Brazil what we need to share among each other. Technology transfer, economic renaissance that will be beneficial to the two countries. Let Brazil continue to widen the opportunity for us to embrace Africa. Africa is the new frontier. There's no other way to do it but to embrace, both in technology, science development, research and development, food sovereignty, and manufacturing techniques. We've discussed at length the roadmap to that. And we want to assure our people present here that we've elevated this promise to the path of reality, as you've seen in the various MOU already signed.
The historic visit brought about the signing of multiple bilateral agreements, including bilateral air services agreements and its Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, Memorandum of Understandings on the training of diplomats and on cooperation in science, technology, and innovation. The leaders emphasized the urgency of boosting bilateral trade and investments and welcomed the Brazil-Nigerian Business Forum, the 3rd this year, as a vital platform to deepen cooperation. Nigeria is committed to approve the certificate allowing Brazil to export apples, beef, and poultry genetic materials, while Brazil will conduct a pest risk analysis within 6 months to enable the import of unhulled sesame and dried hibiscus from Nigeria.
Congratulations on the record production in agriculture.
Well, that underscores the volume and value of livestock sector in Nigeria.
Both leaders expressed satisfaction on the Grain Imperative Program, GIP, and underscored fertilizers as a strategic area of cooperation, with Brazil already the largest buyer of urea. The leaders welcomed the signings of MOUs on trade and investments between the Brazilian Development Bank and Nigeria's Bank of Agriculture, BOA, between Apex Brazil and the Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission, NIPC, and between Brazil's Sebrea and Nigeria's SMEDAN. On agricultural collaboration, the presidents seek to explore sugarcane and cotton value chain. The presidents acknowledged the potential for partnership in the energy sector and the need to advance energy transitions among sustainable and inclusive systems.
We have the largest deposit of gas. I don't see why Petrobras will not be back in Nigeria as soon as possible. And I appreciate Luis promising that will be done as soon as possible.
Both leaders recognized the need to promote greater bilateral exchanges on legal, police, and intelligence to strengthen cooperation in combating drug trafficking and human trafficking. Brazil is set to establish a federal police liaison office in Abuja by year end. The leaders reaffirmed their shared commitment on food security, fight against hunger, and rural development. United Nations Climate Change Conference COP30 and South-South cooperation.
In a bid to promote Africans' development, peace, and security through the strengthening of relations in multilateral cooperation, the Tokyo International Conference on African Development, TICAD, was launched in 1993 by the government of Japan.
TICAD is co-hosted by United Nations Development Programme, World Bank, and African Union Commission. The 9th Tokyo International Conference on African Development, TICAD 9, held in Yokohama, provided a platform of advancing bilateral cooperation and strengthening of diplomatic ties between Nigeria and Japan. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Yusuf Tsuga, met with his Japanese counterpart on the conference sidelines, where he held high-level talks focusing on economic priority sectors such as energy transition, agriculture, and digital economy. Ambassador Tsuga commended Japan's long-standing support for Africa's development through TICAD and Japan's International Cooperation Agency, JICA. The two sides explored cooperation opportunities in vocational training, renewable energy, and climate-smart agriculture. They also exchanged views in collaboration on regional security, counter-terrorism, maritime safety in the Gulf of Guinea, and peacekeeping. While inviting Japanese technology companies to join in Nigeria's Smart City and Digital Economic Initiative, Ambassador Tsuga also extended an invitation to his Japanese counterpart to visit Nigeria for follow-up consultations and proposed a Nigeria-Japan strategic partnership framework to guide future engagements. The Philippines Secretary of Migrant Workers, Hans Leo Kapdak, led a delegation to a meeting with Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Yusuf Tsuga, in Abuja for a high-level discussion focusing on deepening bilateral labor ties, anti-human trafficking, and capacity building.
Better understanding of our mutual interests and the way in which we could both learn from each other, again, in terms of finding better ways and areas of cooperation to the advantage of both of our economies. For sure that back home in the Philippines, we have a migration management system that has managed to document millions of Filipino workers overseas. And we also have a system, as I mentioned, that ably fights human trafficking. We have a fairly good standing, a rating in the latest U.S. State Department Trafficking in Persons report. And then, of course, on the matter of our best interest and our humble request once again to have a labor office under our embassy here, where we could have, again, better liaisoning, better coordination, better discussions with our counterpart ministries, including the foreign ministry, with respect to our workers here in Nigeria, and of course anything and everything that can cater to the best interests of the harmonious relations between Filipino workers and Nigerian employers to, once again, the better advantage of both of our economies. So we have nothing but gratitude. Our hearts are full, Your Excellency, and we have more than an optimistic view toward deepening our two nations' bilateral labor relations. So once again, thank you very much.
Ambassador Tuga reiterated the importance of diaspora in the Nigeria's foreign policy agenda, laying emphasis on the significance of Nigerians working abroad having the protection of the government in order to work with dignity, respect, and equal opportunity.
We have Filipinos working in the aviation sector, in the maritime sector, and it's something that we're looking to strengthen and to learn from each other. We have discussed during our engagements the subject of the Technical Aid Corps, which is under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which sends out Nigerian professionals to African, Caribbean, and Pacific countries. It's been doing that since 1987. So this provides us something to build on, because Nigeria and the Philippines understand that there's a dearth of professionals, of workers, of skilled workers in many parts of the world. And we have the advantage of having youthful, large populations, and we can send out those workers, but we want them to be protected. So we have about 9 agreements that are pending that we want to conclude on. The minister has even suggested a 10th one to do with labor, so we're going to work on that even further. And of course, from here he's going to engage with my counterparts in the labor ministry, where they will discuss even further specifically on the subject of labor.
BRICS, an acronym that represents Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, is an intergovernmental organization made up of 10 countries, but originally started out as 4 countries. BRIC. BRIC was a term coined by Goldman Sachs economics Jim O'Neill to describe the 4 economies that could, if growth were maintained, dominate the global economy by 2050. Brazil, Russia, India, and China, countries that made up BRIC, first began to meet informally during 2006 meeting of the United Nations General Assembly. In 2009, they had their first summit and declared their commitment to a multipolar world order. In 2010, South Africa joined the organization and it was renamed BRICS. Today, BRICS full membership has expanded to include Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Indonesia, and United Arab Emirates. The informal name BRICS Plus is sometimes used to acknowledge the organization's expansion. The 16th BRICS Summit in October 2024 in Kazan, Russia, created the partner category. Nigeria became the 9th partner country in January 2025, joining Belarus, Bolivia, Cuba, Kazakhstan, Malaysia, Thailand, Uganda, and Uzbekistan. The 17th summit in Brazil, hosted by President Luiz Inácio da Silva, was Nigeria's first participation as an official BRICS partner. The summit's theme, Strengthening Global South Cooperation for a More Inclusive and Sustainable Governance, saw President Tinubu addressed a plenary session.
The African continent is creating the path through the African Carbon Market Initiative and Great Green Wall. We believe that eventually COP30 will strengthen our resolve to strategically embrace a healthy global environment. Nigeria strongly believes in South-South cooperation. We can therefore not be passive participants in global decision-making. Financial restructuring, debt forgiveness, climate change, environmental and global healthcare. The African continent is creating the path through the African Carbon Market Initiative and Great Green Wall. We believe that eventually COP30 will strengthen our resolve to strategically embrace a healthy global environment. Nigeria strongly believes in South-South cooperation. We can therefore not be passive participants in global decision-making. Financial restructuring, debt forgiveness, climate change, environmental and global healthcare.
President Tinubu called for re-evaluation across global governance, financial systems, and healthcare infrastructures. He emphasized that Africa contributed the least to global emissions but suffers the most. He counseled that BRICS must not only be a bloc for emerging economies, but also a beacon for emerging solutions rooted in solidarity, self-reliance, sustainability, and shared prosperity of a common future. The president cautioned that global challenges like healthcare inequalities, climate change, and environmental degradation continue to constrain sustainable development across the African continent. However, President Tinubu was optimistic that the forthcoming COP30 climate conference will accelerate global cooperation in tackling environmental and healthcare disparities.
The Republic of Colombia Vice President, Francais Marquez, paid a 3-day official visit to Nigeria to deepen diplomatic and strategic ties between Nigeria and Colombia, and also strengthen cooperation in trade, agriculture, energy, education, and security, among others.
Again, cocoa, coffee, palm oil, cassava, value chain development. Also irrigation, processing of food towards Your Excellency's ambitions for food sovereignty for Nigeria and export diversification. Hibiscus flower in particular is already being exported from Nigeria to Colombia, opening pathways for broader agri-trade partnerships. Textiles and apparel is another area. Digital services and outsourcing. As we know, half of the unicorns in Africa are of Nigerian extraction, and we're home to 120 tech hubs across the country. Nigeria's fast-growing fintech and startup ecosystem aligns with Colombia's strengths in BPOs and digital marketing. We've also proposed energy and natural resources, potential for collaboration, education and human capital development, and several other areas in the bilateral meeting held earlier today. MOUs proposed for signature at today's business forum included cooperation in agriculture, trade and investment, digital trade, SME capacity building, and cultural exchange. Some of these are still being processed.
Vice President Francais Marquez led an envoy made up of cabinet ministers, top government officials, and business sector leaders.
Colombia has kicked off a very significant strategy to reconnect our people with the African continent as a whole. Africa and Colombia and Latin America as a whole share common historical ties. And of course, I, as the first Vice President of African descent of Colombia, I was indeed the ideal person to really lead this reconnection on behalf of our government, and I am therefore extremely proud to be leading this visit to the land of our ancestors. As you, of course, well know, our ancestors were taken away forcefully from this continent as slaves centuries ago, and thanks to the determination of many of the freedom fighters among our ancestors, such as Benkos Bioho, once mentioned also by the Vice Presidents, I am able to return here today as a free woman to reconnect Nigeria and Colombia and Africa and Latin America. Colombia has clearly expressed an interest to strengthen our commercial, cultural, and cooperation ties as countries who belong to the great family of the Global South. Colombia is currently holding the presidency of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States. And of course, we told the leaders of the African Union a few days back in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, that we are really determined to strengthen the work that is currently being deployed to connect Africa with Latin America and the Caribbean in a much closer way. We know that we can work together on issues such as peace, economic and social development, the economic integration of both our regions, social justice, but also closely work on issues such as gender justice, because we know that both our countries are truly interested in making sure that women are more and more involved and active in decision-making spaces. Today, Excellency, we signed an MOU between our two countries to kick off our political consultations, and we hope that we will be able to convene this meeting between both countries very soon and define our cooperation agendas.
That's all for today on Diplomatic Insight. Thank you for watching, and let's see you next week for another interesting episode. Stay informed.